Hi, Honors Algebra 1. So today we're going to be reviewing 2.9 and 2.10. For this particular lesson, you will need a calculator. So go ahead and get one ready as well as a notebook, and let's dive right in. And of course, it goes without saying that on your exam, this part of your test will be calculator friendly. Okay, so a percent, let's actually just review that vocab word first. A percent is actually a ratio out of 100. Okay, and hopefully you know the symbol is a slash with two little circles. And there's three types of percent questions that you could potentially come across. Finding a part. So you might see the question worded something like this: what is 15% of 100? This keyword is represents the part that you're actually finding. Okay, so is tends to represent the part. You could also be asked to find percent. So what percent? Obviously, it's explicitly asking you. If you see the word percent, that's your percent. What percent of 200 is 10? Or finding a base. The base is sometimes also called the whole or the total. And the question could look something like this: 15 is 20% of what number? This keyword of is usually what we use to represent the base. Okay, so just some things to keep in mind. Okay, so let's do a few practice problems. You want to copy this stuff down. There's two ways that we can approach a percent problem. One way is using a proportion, just utilizing the same skills that we reviewed in the last couple of sections. The percent proportion is as follows: part divided by base equals some percent out of 100. Or if we're using those key terms that I just mentioned, it would be is divided by of equals some percent out of 100. So let's take a look at the first example, and I am going to use my calculator to help me get these answers. It says, what percent? Okay, so this is the question that I'm being asked. So the percent is actually what I'm going to be trying to solve for. Of 56 is 42. So of 56, 56 is going to be my base or my of value, and then is 42 is my part or my is value, and will go in the numerator. So my proportion is going to look something like this: 42 is my is, 56 is my of, and since I don't know the percent, I'm going to use a variable. It doesn't matter what variable I use, and this is all divided by 100, so my percent is divided by 100 here. That's always part of your proportion. And then to solve the proportion, we cross multiply, set those cross products equal, and then solve. So one of my cross products is going to be 42 times 100, which is just 4,200. The other cross product is going to be 56 times x, or 56x. And now it's a one step where I can solve by dividing by 56. When I do this, 4,200 divided by 56, I get 75. And it's important to make sure that we throw our percent symbol here because that's what we were being asked to find. You have to remember that if you're being asked to solve for percent, it has to have that symbol. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. What percent of 40 is 2.5? So of 40, again, that's my of value, is 2.5, that's my is value. So my proportion is going to look something like this. 2.5 is my is, or my part. Of is my, or 40 is my of, or my base. And the percent is what I don't know. What percent? That's what I'm looking for. So that's my variable, and it's over 100. And I can just cross multiply and solve again. One of my products is going to contain 2.5 times 100, or 250. The other cross product is going to contain 40 times x, or 40x. I solve the one step by dividing, and I get, when I do it in my calculator, I get 6.25. And again, we were looking for the percent, So I have to make sure I put that symbol in my answer. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. 125% of what number is 17.5? So in this case, I don't know my of value. I'm looking for my base, so that's going to be my variable this time. So I know that my is 17.5. My of is the missing piece, so that's my variable. My 125 is my percent, and it's over 100. I'm going to cross multiply to get my cross products. So one of my cross products is going to contain 1750. This is going to be equal to my other cross product of 125x. I solve the one step by dividing both sides by 125. And when I do this in my calculator, I get 14. And I don't put the percent symbol this time because I was finding my base. I was not finding the percent. I was finding this value. Okay, last one. What is, so this, in this case, I'm looking for my is, 32% of 125. So now I don't know my is value, so that's going to be my variable. But I know my of is 125, that's my base, and 32 is my percent, and it's being divided by 100 because every percent's a ratio out of 100. I'm going to cross multiply to get one of my products. That's going to give me 100x. I'm going to cross multiply to get my other product. I'm going to cheat and use my calculator since this is calculator friendly. 125 times 32 gives me 4,000. And now I'm going to solve the one step by dividing by 100. And I get x is equal to 40. And again, I don't throw a percent symbol here because I was not finding the percent, I was finding the part. So that's one way we can solve percent problems. Another way that we can solve percent problems is using the percent equation. So the percent equation is kind of similar to the proportion. You're going to have some sort of percent. You're going to multiply it with the of value, and it's going to be equal to the is value. Or in other words, it's the percent times your base, which is equal to your part. Now, a few key things to note here about the percent. That percent, when you're plugging it in to the equation, if you've been provided the percent, needs to be converted to a decimal. Likewise, if you're solving for the percent, you're going to get a decimal that you then have to convert to a percent. So to go from a percent to a decimal, you're going to move the decimal places 2 places to the left. Okay, so move decimal, move decimal to the left 2 places. So here's an example. If I wanted to convert 15% to a decimal, I would have to first realize that as an integer, there's an invisible decimal at the end and move it 2 places to the left, and it becomes a 0.15 without the percent symbol, okay? If you were going the other way, let me just shrink this and move it a little bit. If you were going the other way and you were converting a decimal to a percent, you would move the decimal to the right 2 places. For example, if you had 0.15 and I wanted to make that a percent, I would take the decimal and move it 2 places to the right and throw a percent symbol after my answer. And of course, again, if you were working with a value that needed to be converted to a percent, but it looked like an integer, you would have to still add that decimal point and move it 2 places to the right. So just some conversions are going to be required for when we're using the equation here. So let's take a look at the first one. It says, what percent of 80 is 60? So the percent is what I'm looking for. So that's going to be my variable in my equation. I know that the of value is 80. So this x gets multiplied with 80. And then is 60. So that's my is value. It's a one-step equation, so I can solve it by dividing by 80. And I get x is equal to, and if I divide here, I get 0.75. But remember, when you're solving for the percent, you're going to get a decimal. It's in decimal format. Okay, so that means I have to actually make a conversion here. I have to go from a decimal to a percent, so I got to move my decimal place 2 places to the right and throw a percent symbol afterwards. 75% is my answer here. Let's do another one like that. What percent of 42 is 5.04? So again, my percent is what I'm looking for, so that's my variable. I know the of value is 42. I know the is value is 5.04, and I solve for the value of my variable. It's a one step, so I can just divide both sides by 42. And when I do that, I'm going to get 0.12. So again, this is technically in decimal format because I solved, I'm solving for the percent, I get a decimal. So I have to take that decimal and move it 2 places to the right and throw a percent symbol afterwards. 12% is my answer here. Now let's go the other way. Let's say that one of your known values is the percent. Well, when that's the case, I have to take the decimal point and move it 2 places to the left before I can set up my equation. So again, if you don't see a decimal in the percent, it's understood to be all the way on the end, just like with any integer. So if I move this 2 places to the left, that's going to make this a 1.12. That's what I want to use as my percent in this equation. And then it says 112% of what number? So the of value is what I'm solving for, so that's my variable. And then is 3.95, that's my is value. And now I simply solve for my base, my of value. It's a one step, so I'm going to solve this equation by dividing both sides by 1.12. And then let's see what I get. 3.95 divided by 1.12 is going to give me a decimal. Did I do this correctly? Of what number is 3.95? Okay, so let's go ahead and make an addition to our instructions here because I am getting a decimal that's not terminating. So we need to all agree what decimal place we're going to round to, because as I said in a previous lesson, if it doesn't state in the instructions that you're allowed to round, you can't round. So let's say that we're going to round to the nearest tenth for all answers that need to be rounded. So I am getting 3.52 and so on and so forth. So if I round to the nearest tenth, that's going to give me 3.5. That is my final answer. And notice I don't have to make any conversions here. I already handled that conversion for the percent right at the beginning. When you're finding a base or an is value, a base or a part, when you're solving for those, you don't have to convert anything in your answer. You just have to convert the percent. Either convert the percent to a decimal or convert the decimal to a percent if it's what you were solving for. Okay, let's take a look at the last one. What is, so that's what I'm finding. I'm finding my is value. 70.5 of 130. So I know that this is my percent. I know that my percent has to be a decimal, so I'm going to take the decimal, move it 2 places to the left, and I'm going to get 0.705. I know that my of value is 130. I don't know my is value, and I can just multiply to get my answer. So 0.705 times 130 gives me 91.65. So again, if I'm going to round to the nearest tenth, I'm just going to bump that 6 up to a 7. And again, I don't need to throw a percent symbol after here because I didn't need to find the percent. I already knew that. And I don't need to convert anything here. I already handled that percent conversion right at the beginning. So as you can see, using proportions might be a little bit easier than using the equations, just so you don't have to do that conversion piece, but you are required to know both strategies, okay? There may be questions on the chapter test that specifically says, use an equation to solve this, use a proportion to solve this, so you need to know both skills. Okay, now let's talk about percent change. Percent change is quite easy. It uses pretty much the same formula every single time. So percent change is going to be the following formula. It's the amount of change divided by the original amount, and then times 100 to make it a percent. Okay, and of course, since this is solving for a percent, we want to make sure that when we get an answer here, we're putting the percent symbol in that number. And to find the amount of change, you just subtract. You subtract the smaller number from the larger number. We always want to subtract so that we get a positive. And there's 2 types of percent change that you could get. You could have a percent increase. And this happens when the new amount went up from the original. Pretty intuitive. You could also have a percent decrease, and this happens when the new amount went down. Okay, so if the new amount is higher than the original, then it's a percent increase. If the new amount is lower, then it's a percent decrease. Pretty self-explanatory there. So let's do some examples. So it says, find the percent change between the values, round to the nearest tenth, state if it's a percent increase or decrease. I can actually do that last part right away by just looking at the numbers. From 45 to 92. So the first number is always implied to be the original, and the second is always implied to be the new. So the 92, which is the new value, is higher. So this is going to be a percent increase because I see the numbers are going up. And then to find my amount of change, I'm just going to take the larger number, subtract the smaller. I'm just going to use my calculator to make it fast. 92 minus 45 gives me 47. And I'm going to take that amount of change, divide it by the original, and then multiply that answer by 100 to get my percent of change. So it's kind of like following order of operations. I'm just going to multiply and divide left to right. So I'm going to divide first and then multiply. 47 divided by 45. I'm going to keep that answer in my calculator. I see that I can round it, but I'm going to wait to round at the very end. I'm getting 1.04 and the 4 is repeating. And I'm just going to times that by 100 and I get 104.4, and the 4 is repeating. So I can just round that to the nearest tenth and leave it as a 4 and throw a percent symbol after. Here's my percent increase. Number 2, from 117 to 91, the new amount went down, so this is going to be a percent decrease. To find the amount of change, I'm going to take the larger value and subtract the smaller one. So again, you always want to subtract in such a way that you get a positive, so always start with the bigger number. I get 26. I'm going to take 26, divide it by the original number, which is 117, and multiply that by 100. So 26 divided by 117 is giving me 0.2 repeating. If I multiply that by 100, I get 22.2 repeating. So I can just round that to 0.2 and throw a percent symbol after it. Okay, and the next one, 72 to 3. 3 is lower, so this is going to be a percent decrease. And I can subtract these two and get, let's see, 2 and then one more brings me to 69. Divide 69 by the original number of 72. Multiply that by 100. So I'm just going to use my calculator. Divide, multiply, and I'm getting 95.83, and the 3 is repeating. So if I round to the nearest tenth here, I'm going to leave that 8 and 8 because rounding rules say if it's 4 or less, you let that number rest. And of course, I throw a percent symbol after. From 16 to 64, 64 went up. So this is a percent increase. I'm going to subtract in such a way that I get a positive. I get 48. I'm going to divide that number by the original, which was 16, and multiply that answer by 100. And I'm getting 3. So when I multiply that by 100, I get 300. It's not a decimal, so no need to round here. And I just throw a percent symbol after it. And I believe that might be it. Let me just double check to see if that was the last slide. It was. So I hope that you guys found this information helpful. This pretty much wraps up everything that we're covering in chapters 1 and 2. So at this point, you'll want to go back to all of the notes that you've taken, all of the activities and assignments that you've done, and use them as resources to do some additional studying. Next time that you'll be in person in class, you'll be taking a test. Feel free to reach out to me or whoever your math teacher is if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.